Trading is closed on June 10th, 2022. Let's start with our disclaimer. It's my trading plan for Monday, June 13th. Remember, I can be wrong. Any trade you make should be at your own risk. Look for the pattern with the early high. Tends to be a rally day, high in the final hour. That happened, but it certainly was a negative day. When the day is negative, it should mean that more negativity is coming and lower prices should print. Only thing to kill that would be to gap up and overtake today's high promptly. It's hard for me to see that happening. It doesn't help that we hit the high day in the first bar and low day in the last. It doesn't help this happened on Friday. This almost always carries through. So I think more negativity is coming, and if we don't open lower Monday, if we don't gap lower Monday, I'm going to be surprised and won't really have a plan. This is a reminder of what we said. We said if yesterday's low held, it would be a possible low based on the time and the wave count. I said if we traded under yesterday's low, forget the idea. So we gapped down. That was killed before the open. These are the patterns I look for to print next week. We get to cross the target off the list, 39.4704 from May 25th. Resistance over the target. Next lower targets from one day earlier, 38.9493, that's this brown line. We really tested that level so many times that even though there's normally support under it, I think support's been used up. And if we do break under this level, I wouldn't look for support. The next lower unfilled target is the only unfilled target from last year, which is 37.0175. And if that prints, it'll trigger a buy signal described on page 120 of my book. The signal is quite reliable, and it says before Tuesday's close, we'll have a decent-sized rally. It doesn't say where it starts from, though. Now, when I wrote the book, it was 20 years ago, and at that time, a decent rally was 8 to 10 points. That's not very decent today. So I don't really have a number because that signal doesn't trigger very often. But if this does print, if we do crash Monday and this prints, there should be a decent-sized rally coming, not exactly when this prints, although that happens often, but before Tuesday's close. The next lower target after this is from the year 2020, and I think it's around 3,200 if I remember. So these numbers don't always print when you want them to, but they do print. Today, MEJT said this move up here is false. It said lower price would print. We undercut this line, and we did. This is the weekly chart. Here's DeMark's TDST line. You now printed one bar under this line. This is his support area. If we trade another weekly bar completely under this line, support breaks. And that's pretty unusual. Nothing's impossible, but it's unusual. So if we do gap down Monday, which is what I think is pretty likely, there's a very good chance we're going to close the week higher than we closed today. Not a guarantee, but highly likely. At major lows like this, we tend to see a volume spike. We're getting there, but that's not enough. It would add credence to a low Monday if we had a big volume spike. Monday's a good day based on the calendar for this drop to end. Just because it's good doesn't mean it works, but it's a day to look for it. This is my long-term count. I don't know about the degrees of these waves. This might actually be blue, but it doesn't matter. I think we've completed either magenta A or magenta B or we've completed gray A of magenta B. I don't think it's over. If that's A and that's B, we should be in C, or at least gray B of magenta B. One of my trading rules, when you have a sloping trend line and you break through in a straight line, you should return to the trend line at some point. Doesn't mean we have to get there Monday, but if we do, if that happens, if there's a crash, we'll hit 36.78. If we crash, and if 36.78 prints, this leg will be 1.618 times the length of the prior consolidation. Let's remember 36.78. If we hit 36.78, we'll have a good Fibonacci grid with hits at 38.2, 50, 61.8, and 78.6. Monday's a square of 9 change in trend date, doesn't have any tolerance, so if it hits, it'll work perfectly. It's also within the tolerance of 3 to 6 days of two of Christopher Carolan's change in trend dates. So the calendar supports a low Monday, but it sure doesn't guarantee it. Just keep focused on 36.78. Here's our count, 5 waves up. We're now counting this. When you have a straight line move like this, either you're in 5 waves down, or it's an X wave, which should be a 3-wave pattern. If it's an X wave, it really should cover the whole ground of the prior consolidation. This would be A, B, C, and then we'd have an X. This would be A, B, C, not this A, B, C, and then this would be an X. And you could stop around here, but I don't think that's the count. I think it's a 5-wave structure, not a 3. So I'm counting it this way, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Now, wave 4 should be equal to wave 2, either in terms of price or time. So, how am I doing this? It's the time for wave 2, and this would be the time for wave 4. And I think it works. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 3, and then you made 4. Now, if wave 5 is equal to wave 1, that comes around 38.62.24, and there wouldn't be a crash. That's not much of a crash from here, and it's one place it could end. But if there's a crash, and if we hit 36.78, if that happens, wave 5 would be equal to waves 1 through 3, exactly, which should make a pretty picture. So if there's a crash, which isn't guaranteed, 38.76 is one place I'd consider catching the falling knife. If that doesn't play out, it's going to be pretty tough to play this when you have moves of this magnitude. Well, Monday's pattern has the early low. We could still gap up. High of day was the first 5-minute bar, low of day was the last. Friday's action typically carries over into Monday. I'm expecting a down opening Monday and don't really have a plan if that doesn't happen. Monday's a square of 9 date, falls within 2 spiral calendar dates, just within the tolerance of both date, opens the door to a possible bottom Monday. If we have a crash opening, there's way balance around 36.78 cash. It would also trigger a buy signal described on page 120 of my book, return to the downsloping trend line, and complete 5 waves down by 1 count. If that's not the way things play out, I'm not going to try to catch the falling knife, even though Monday's a great day for a low. Other days work too. I'm not going to guess on something like this. That area works or it doesn't. So I think there's more to come. If we crash, I'm looking for 36.78. Monday's a great day for a low, but it certainly isn't the only day. The pattern has the early low, and that's today's call.